Hi, I'm KJ Aiello, and welcome back to The Book Hook, where each episode we dig into writing and storytelling that challenges the status quo and examines how authors use their work to resist, to question, and to reimagine our world. No surface level chat, just thoughtful conversations for critical readers like you. Today, I'm chatting with author and trans rights and mental health advocate, Rowan Jetté Knox.
I think bringing things back to local community is in itself a radical act. This is an act of defiance. This is an act of radicalness. This is an act especially of love, because I love my community and I hurt every day that my community is suffering so much around the world.
So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's dive into today's conversation.
Hi, I'm Rowan. I'm an author, speaker, human rights activist, and I'm the future owner of a cute little coffee shop.
Okay, can we get more details on that first? I feel like we're starting with the important stuff because coffee.
My partner Danny and I are opening a coffee shop in the heart of the gay village in Toronto. And it's going to be this trans owned, because we're both trans operated, because right now it's just going to be us working there. Coffee shop and wine bar, but also this third space for people to feel safe and connected in their community.
So where did that idea come from? I'm totally going off script now, like we talked about before I hit record.
No, that's good. Yeah, that's why I was like, no, don't send me any questions. Let's just do our thing. That's all right, because that's what a meaningful conversation is to me.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it came about, well, it actually came about because my partner got laid off. And at the same time, she's a creative director. She was a creative director for like 27 years. She worked in advertising. And she's like, I'm 50 years old. I'm a trans woman. I'm a woman, period, full stop. And it's going to be very hard for me to find something else in this economy, in an industry that's being sort of overrun by AI right now. I mean, there's a lot of reasons for that.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I have worked in DEI for the last 10 years or so. And that work has largely dried up. It's not impossible to find, but it is certainly difficult. And the pay is not what it used to be, because companies do not want to invest in it as a general rule anymore. It's not popular. So between the two of us, we thought, like, what do we do? And also, whatever we do, could we make it meaningful, right? Is there something we can do that actually has an impact? Because I'm all about making an impact. I really want I hate to use the term legacy because it seems really grandiose. I don't mean it that way, but I want my purpose in life to be that I tried, I helped, I built, right? And I help people feel less alone. That's what I've been doing for a really long time. So we always thought we would, retire to the small town she grew up in, and, in a few years from now, and we would open a coffee shop then. And we decided that we would do it now, but do it with impact, do it where it's not just a coffee shop and like a little wine bar. It is this place where people can show up and see trans people thriving. And maybe they themselves can be queer people who are thriving in that space and feel good and feel creative and meet people and just feel at home. So that's why we decided to do it.
That feels radical. What do you think what's your reaction when people say that opening a coffee shop as a trans family is a radical act?
I think there would have been a time when I would have said, no, it's not. I'm a person who happens to be trans, and my partner is a person who happens to be trans. So we're just opening this coffee shop together, and that's great. But we chose a location on purpose because I think it is about bringing community back to the core and bringing community back to its historical roots, because we start to get in trouble when we forget history. We're seeing that happen all over the world right now, down south from where we are in Canada. We're seeing that happening, especially. And we can't forget the legacy of the queer elders who came before us and what they fought for to give us what we have today. And I think bringing things back to local community is in itself, yes, a radical act. I would say at this point, this is an act of defiance. This is an act of radicalness. This is an act especially of love, because I love my community and I hurt every day that my community is suffering so much around the world. And if I can do this one small thing where people who live here have that community base to go to, and people who don't live here can see that that is possible, perhaps, and create something like that in the ways that they can where they live. Wonderful.
Yeah. I'm wondering too, though. So I'm in Toronto, and you bet your bottom dollar I'm going to be there.
Yes.
I have books to write, so you're going to witness the tears. Just keep feeding me coffee. You are a public figure. You have tens of thousands of followers between, social media accounts. You have 2 best-selling books, one of which I have right here, One Sunny Afternoon, a memoir of trauma and healing. You're a pretty prolific writer, freelance writer. You've written some really phenomenal pieces, but you've received a lot of not just hate, but you've been in dangerous spaces, which also led to your second book, One Sunny Afternoon. Which I'm going to get back to, but I'm just wondering, with opening up a physical location, the world knows where you are now. What does that feel like, and what does that mean for your safety?
We thought about that. And we certainly have security protocols in place. Like I've been doxxed before, and I think the scariest time that happened was when the principal of my non-binary child's middle school called on I think it was like Good Friday, and said, "Rowan, we got a letter, and the school board got it, and it's this big manifesto essentially, but you're named in it, and your child is named in it, and the school is named in it, and there are threats. We don't know who sent it." And that involved having to file police reports along with the school. It involved having to escort my children to school. It involved the school having additional security outside to monitor the kids when they were out there. My kids couldn't leave the house by themselves for a while. And all of that it is designed to make you afraid. And nothing ever happened, but you can't be too careful in those situations. I've been very careful since, in terms of making sure that, I never take pictures on my street. I never take pictures of the front of my house. I never take pictures of anything that would give anything away. Even when I take pictures on social media or video, I'm nowhere near where I live. I do that on purpose so that people can't figure out where it is. It's not just to protect me, it's to protect my family. Mm-hmm. And now, you're right. Suddenly, everyone knows the address of where we're going to be. Yeah. It's like, wow, this is where I have a lot of trust and faith in my community. So for one, we're going to be right down at Church and Wellesley, which is the heart. If you think of the heart of the LGBTQ village, that is it. And we are right basically on the corner. And I think my community has got us. I think our community will absolutely make sure that the place is safe, that everybody in it is safe. I think, we have protocols where we're designing protocols for when we get there in the morning, when we leave at night, how many people are there, what do we do, how do we, all of that has to be factored in. Ultimately, I really do believe that 99.99999% of the hate that people will give you online is not going to be translated to real life. They feel emboldened. They're behind a keyboard. They're behind a phone screen, and they're saying, "I'm," they're trying to scare you. They're trying to get you to be quiet. They're trying to silence us. I'm not naive. I know there can be issues, but we're going to work with our community partners, and we're going to make sure that we stay as safe and that everybody stays as safe as possible.
What role do you think the police could have or should have in making sure that the community is safe, as well as you and your family?
Yeah, like a lot of queer people and a lot of people on the margins of society. I have very mixed feelings about policing. So and part of my human rights studies was studying policing and what police are actually supposed to do versus what often what can happen in policing that we see in the media, and that many people in my community have faced. I have personally not dealt with police in a negative way. I also have very pale skin, and I'm going to put that out there. I have a lot of privilege in a lot of ways. I do think that the police that are assigned to the Church Wellesley area are often queer themselves or have ties to the community. I don't know enough about the community. I haven't lived here long enough and been in that area long enough to know exactly how that works, but it seems like there's some good communication. So I do think that it is obviously the job of police is to serve and protect. Protect is a big word here. So serve the community you're in, protect the community you're in. I am hoping that if anything does arise, and I'm certainly hoping nothing will, that is exactly what will happen. And I will do everything I can to ensure that that serve and protect is carried out.
And you also have quite a platform too, so you can raise awareness, and you do this constantly, raise awareness. And you know, some of the comments, I go to the comments, and I don't know why. I always go to the comments.
Don't go to the comments. It's
don't
terrible.
Go to the comments. What are you thinking? I do anyways because I can't not stick my finger in that light socket. But you always respond with kindness, with care, with understanding, but also putting people in their place. How have you come to that sort of, it feels very like Jedi Master Zen. How have you come to that?
I used to be terrible online. I used to fight back. I used, and I realized two things. One is my time and energy is very valuable. Everybody's is. We may not recognize that it's valuable, but it is. So I only have so much time and so much energy in any given day. How do I want to spend that? So that's the first thing. So I decide whether or not I'm going to, 1, read the comments, 2, respond to any comments, 3, if I respond to any comments, how am I going to do that? And I know I'm not going to reach the person making the comments. For one, I could just be a bot. Sometimes they're just bots meant to stir up trouble. They're not real people. But when they are real people, a lot of them, if they feel so strongly that they're going to send me a hateful comment, I'm probably not going to change their minds no matter what I say or do, no matter how long I take. But there are all these other people who will watch a conversation like that. And they're going to think to themselves, you know, I don't know how I feel about this right now. How do I feel about trans people, for example? And so it's my job, I think, to use that as a teachable moment for the silent majority who are just sitting there reading. If I could reach some of them, perfect. And the other thing is that I have children, and my children are grown up now. They're 18 to 28 years old. I have 4 of them. My partner has 1. That makes 5 adult kids now. But at one point they were all much younger. And I never, because I'm very online, or at least I used to be, I'm not as much anymore, but a lot of my job is online. I wanted to set a good example for them. I don't want them to see me and go, what is my dad doing today? Like, why is he acting like that? Why is he calling people names? Why is he yelling at people? Why is he creating all this chaos? I wanted them to see what it looks like to say to your kids, be a kind person, but be a strong person, and actually do it. What does it look like to put those words that I am trying to instill into you into action? So that is a big, big part of how I decided to grow up and just deal with things in a different way.
How has it changed? So going to One Sunny Afternoon, which really spoke to me in a lot of ways as somebody who has dealt with their own mental health challenges. You start the book with a mental health crisis. In the book, you are very candid about that. My heart was, I had a bit of a visceral reaction because there was a lot of remembrance for me in those moments and how you describe that sort of dissociation. How has your perspective or your care of your mental health changed between the moments that brought you to the mental health crisis to today? Because there still seems to be this continual pile on.
I think I've really detached other people's words and actions from who I am as a person. That's the biggest thing. So it's very easy to take everything personally, especially when people are literally calling you names or accusing you of terrible things or whatever it might be. But now I recognize it's like a piece of art. So I paint. I like to paint a lot, right? And I put a piece of art or a book out into the world. We use one of those as an example. Let's say I write One Sunny Afternoon, I put it out into the world, and then people are like, I love this book. This book changed my life. It is the best book I've ever read. And then there's someone else going, I hate this book. I couldn't get through it. I didn't like the voice of the author. I didn't like the subject matter. It was terrible. 1 star.
Yeah.
It's the same work of art going out into the world. And the only thing that is different is the person who's interpreting it. So outside of me making, say, some very hateful comments or something where I'm attacking people, everything else that I, which I try not to do, and everything else that I put out into the world is going to be interpreted based on the other person's experiences, viewpoints, traumas, anything else that has happened to them. So I can't take that on as a person. So when people pile on me and call me all kinds of terrible things, it might not feel good. But now, as opposed to having a huge crisis reaction about it, I'm able to go, okay, slow your roll. Think about this for a minute. How much of this is actually yours and how much of this is theirs? And because of that, I am in a much better place.
Can you take me back to that? If you feel comfortable, if you don't, that's okay. Take me back to, the lead up to the mental health crisis that you had. And I believe it was the height of the pandemic during lockdown. Let's add on to the stress. What happened?
Well, I had written a book in 2019 called Love Lives Here, a story of thriving in a transgender family. And at the time, I was, with one person. I was married to one person, and we had 3 children. And in that time, in 2013, our child came out as trans. And then in 2014, my wife came out, who I knew as my husband at the time, came out as trans. I had not dealt with my own gender issues. I knew they were there, but I was not willing to look at them yet. It was not the time. But I knew I had to love and support them and learn as much as I could about what it meant to be trans today as a child, as an adult, and what it meant to love and support a child and love and support a partner through transition, which is what happened. So I wrote this story with their support and guidance, and their go ahead. They read everything I wrote and checked all the yes boxes. And I put this book out into the world. It was published. It got a lot of attention. A lot of very positive attention. It actually ended up being a bestseller, and it still sells a lot of copies today. And I think it's because it was written from the perspective of a parent and a spouse. And that was not something that was regularly written about. There were other memoirs that were written by trans people for trans people, or by trans people for cis people. But this was a book that at the time I was presenting cis, was written by a cis person explaining how to love as much as you can and understand as much as you can your family members. While that was, again, it was something that a lot of people liked, there was a small group of trans people who were not happy I wrote the book, because they said, and they have every right to feel this way. They said, how dare a cis person take up space like this? You don't have the right to talk about trans experiences, to write about trans experiences. I, as a trans person, do not agree with that whatsoever. I think if your intent is good and you've done your research and you've worked with trans people, that's not a problem, but they have that right. And that it was one thing to have the opinion. It was the other thing when it snowballed on Twitter. It got really, really loud and really, really big. I was not in a good place. The fame and the attention, I mean, while it was really nice to get a lot of that support from people and hear that my book was helping people, a lot of the attention I was also receiving from transphobic people, from right-wing media, was horrific. And dealing with all those things like the threats and everything else. And then the community starts to pile on me. With the pandemic and everything else, I fell apart. I couldn't deal with it. It was day after day after day after day of just these streams of hate in all my social media platforms. Even when I shut them down, they started piling into my email. They started talking to my friends. They started trying to get people to cancel me, essentially everywhere. And I just snapped one day. I snapped, and I thought to myself, the easiest way out is not to be here anymore. I can't do this. That clearly the world doesn't want me here. Clearly I have nothing good to give. Maybe they're right. Maybe I am a narcissist. Maybe I am, at the time, presenting as a woman, a stage mom. Maybe I am exploiting my family. Maybe I am all the things that they said, and I just can't see it. So I must be a horrible person. I'm going to die. And at the very last minute, before I did what I wouldn't have been able to come back from, I decided not to and went to the hospital instead.
When I was reading it, I saw it cinematically in my head, just sort of these motions, these dissociated motions that you were going through. Can you describe what that felt like?
It really did feel like I was watching somebody else. So that cinematic feeling is exactly what I was feeling. It was like my body and my mind had just decided to do something, and I was along for the ride. And I think a lot of that, it speaks to the dissociative nature of trauma, where we go someplace else. Our brains are trying to protect us from what is going on. They're trying to shield us somehow. So sometimes that means you don't remember something entirely. Sometimes that means like you're not quite there. And that was the case for me. And when I wrote that part of the book, that was actually the first part I wrote. Before I did anything else, I said, this is a story I think I'm going to need to tell because I think it's an important one. So I'm going to write this really awful piece of it right away and put it away. And it doesn't mean that I didn't look at it after and I didn't edit it, and wow, did I edit it. I went through that so much later. Every time my editor sent me back things, I was like, do I have to go through this again? I don't want to deal with this again, but I did. But really I think having it so raw is what has really spoken to people. They've said as they've read it, I was right there with you. I felt everything you were feeling in that moment. It was very hard to read because it was so real. And so I guess I did my job.
Yeah, you did it very well. I was feeling it and remembering my own experiences, which is interesting to me because I've often, I don't know, I was raised in, even into my 20s and 30s, don't talk about suicide, don't talk about suicidal ideation. I mean, we didn't have the language for this also. It was committed suicide and that's it. We're suicidal. Don't talk about it because then somebody's actually going to go ahead and do it. You're going to give them ideas. And yet you didn't lean away from this. What kind of impact do you think that this has had on people who might be contemplating?
I think what I really wanted to do is hopefully what I achieved, which was to write a memoir where I showed what it's like to be at the top of your game in so many ways, because in so many ways I was, and be struggling really, really, really hard at the same time. And showing that you can fall very low and rise again. Like, it's not the end. Even when you think it is the end, you're convinced it's the end. If you stick around, chances are it's probably not, and things are likely going to get a lot better for you. It's just, it doesn't feel that way at the time. And that is what has been what I have received in my inbox since. When it comes to this book, it's quite often from people who have experienced these feelings as well, who have been really low like that before, or maybe who are in that place right now and have found hope and can relate and feel, most importantly to me, seen. They see themselves in me. And I think that is very impactful.
What was it like? We have Rowan as the author, but also looking back on Rowan, who is going through the mental health crisis, and being able to, how am I explaining this? I am explaining it not very well. This is my brain. Having the authority to be able to write something that is so clear, that is intentional, that also has the emotional drive that it needs to have, while still maintaining your own sanctity and your own mental health while writing it. How did you do that?
I had regular therapy, so that's where privilege comes in, but therapy was an absolute, there was no way I was going to write this without that therapy. I also had the support of my publisher. My publisher was fantastic, and they were like, Rowan, we want to protect your mental health above everything else. That is the most important thing. We don't want you to get back into this position again. It was really as a result of your last book that all of this happened to begin with. And of course, they're not saying it's all our fault, because it wasn't their fault, but they were saying we want to make sure that we take care of our authors. So there were check-ins from my editors and just sort of making sure that I was okay. I took breaks whenever I needed to. So there were times when I took 2 or 3 weeks and I was just like, I'm not writing right now. I'm just going to do other things, take care of myself, recharge, and then come back to it. And just being able, like, having good friends and family where I could finish work for the day on that book, which was really heavy, and then sit down and kind of go, wow, it was a lot. Can I talk to you about it? So that combined with also I exercise regularly. I try to eat well. Like I take care of myself. I meditate, and I think doing all of those things together is what kept me grounded and able to write the book.
When I was writing my own book, I did have similar experiences. And, thank goodness for, listeners, readers, whomever are in the Ontario area. And I think even in Canada, with Canada Council of the Arts and the Ontario Arts Council, if you receive a literary grant, you are also automatically eligible for an accessibility grant, which for me paid for an entire year of therapy while I got through the drafting of the book. So this is,
Wow.
yeah. So maintaining your sanctity, maintaining your mental health while writing something so that could be re-traumatizing for you is really important. And I'm glad you were able to take those steps and you had the support that you really needed, because it resulted in a wonderful book, an impactful book.
I do think that people have this idea. This is what happened in 2020 as well. People have this idea that authors are wildly rich. I don't know where they get this idea, but there is this idea that we all live very, very well off the profits of our books. And I was like, do you not understand that I am a non-fiction Canadian author? Like there are levels to Canadian authors. And I am towards the bottom of that in terms of financial success. So can we just acknowledge that? But it is true. Authors, I think we give a lot, especially when we write things like memoirs, but in general, we are putting countless hours and so much emotion and mental energy, and we sacrifice a lot to put these books out in the world so that other people could read them and go, oh, that really helped me. That really helped me as a person. I feel so much better, or I feel seen, or I know what to do now, or whatever it is. We're not taking care of authors the way that we used to. Like a lot of industries, a lot of the responsibility has started to come back onto the authors themselves. Our support teams have gotten smaller. And so I think it is really important, if you are in the literacy world, to understand that your job is a very important job and you deserve to take care of yourself. And in a perfect world, all of those supports would be available to us immediately. But like you were just saying, the ability to apply for a grant and then use that grant for something like therapy is a wonderful idea. In my opinion, all mental health should be free. It should be publicly funded. And I don't just mean, here's some cognitive behavioral therapy. Here's 10 sessions of cognitive behavioral therapy, which is wonderful therapy. I've done it like 3 times. Really happy I did it. But that's not the only therapy that people need. And a lot of the other stuff, like things like brain spotting or EMDR for trauma therapy, or, there's all these different types of therapies that people need, and they're not necessarily covered, or the wait lists are really, really long. So that's me going on a rant, but I really feel strongly.
Stay on your soapbox, because we need more people screaming at the top of their lungs. Mental health care should be free. It is one of the most prevalent of disabilities in Ontario is mental health disabilities. It costs us in so many ways. I could go on forever.
So many ways. I live in the core. I live in the core of Toronto. I live fairly downtown, right? And fairly central. And the amount of people that I know are living on the street right now because they cannot access proper mental health care for what they need is awful. And then it's like, and then people are like, oh, there's all these unhoused people. And there's so many reasons why people are unhoused. And I have been unhoused myself. So there's no judgment here from me ever. But like, if we gave people what they needed, this would not be nearly the problem, the crisis that it is right now. And sometimes it's as simple as, it's not as simple as, but I think I said it in this book. If I didn't, I certainly researched it. I can't remember now, but like the number one thing that we can do as a society to cut public costs is to eliminate childhood traumas. If we can take away the traumas that children face when they're young, and for the ones that we simply can't, get them the right supports when they're young, we solve so many issues. And then books like mine don't even have to get written.
So is this sort of a call that if you do your job, Rowan, do your job well enough, you won't have a job?
Yes, I have been saying this for years. People are like, how long are you going to do this? I'm like, until I'm not needed anymore. My ideal is your job has been eliminated because everybody loves and supports trans people now. Yeah. Everybody gets mental health stuff now, and everyone has the supports they need. So your job is, it's not necessary. Go do something else.
Yeah. What is trauma? A lot of people don't really have a firm grasp of what it is, I find.
I think it's an overused term because people will use it sort of in a funny sense sometimes, which I have no problem with. Like, I get it. I think laughter is actually, it's a great form of healing from things like trauma, by the way. But trauma is, it's memory, like a trauma disorder, essentially, or the traumas that we have that we carry. There's two different, I'm not a psychologist, so I'm not going to be able to use all the fancy terms, but my understanding of it is trauma memories get stored in a different part of the brain than the average memory. So I might have a bad memory. Let's say I got beat up at school or something, but it wasn't traumatic to me. I got in a fight and it was, that would be an unpleasant memory. And unpleasant memories, maybe, your partner breaks up with you and that was a sad time or whatever. But then trauma, when you have a memory with trauma, there's when the body reacts to it, when it's recalled, whether through a trigger or through something else, the body and mind behave as if it is happening right now, because there is no timeline attached to it. So if something terrible happened as a child and you're 40 years old and something triggers that traumatic memory, your nervous system ignites as if it is happening right now. And that's why people who have trauma reactions can often behave in ways that they never would behave for anything else. So you'll have people who act incredibly young during a trigger moment, incredibly, have a huge outburst, an outburst of anger, or, cry and, have a big emotional reaction. And that is really because the nervous system is like, where am I right now? Am I back there? Oh no, that was really dangerous. Is that what I'm in right now? That's terrible. And so trauma healing, we don't heal the same way as you would heal from other things. It doesn't work quite like depression or anxiety, although those are sort of satellite things that can hover around a trauma disorder. Trauma disorders are healed largely when there are somatic types of therapies that help. So talk therapy can help in some cases. It was not super effective for me. I had to pair that with something called EMDR, which is, there's a lot of ways to do it, so I won't get into all these details, but essentially it uses some physical stuff that you do at the same time, and as you're recalling those memories, and it takes the traumatic memory and it learns to store it in the regular memory compartment of your brain. And so it's not like you forget it. It's just that at this point, it's just a bad memory. It's a bad thing that happened to you. You might still have feelings about it, but you're not going to have a full reaction to it anymore.
Whereas if you are reliving the trauma, it may not necessarily be the actual memory, but the physical reaction to it.
That's right. You might not even know what's going on. Right. But the nervous system is the oldest part of us. It's like 100 million years old. It is only equipped to help us survive. It doesn't understand language, but it understands touch. It understands these soothing gestures that we can do. So sometimes you can do like a somatic form of yoga. You can do tapping. You can do breathing exercises. You can do that sort of thing to help bring it back down again. But there can be things like if you almost drowned as a toddler, but you don't remember drowning as a almost drowning as a toddler. You've just been told that happened. Or maybe you've never been told it happened. Your body remembers that. So later, much later, you might get around water or something happens and suddenly your body is having that same fearful oh my God, I'm dying sensation again. And you might not know why.
That's a really good way to put it, a good analogy for people to understand trauma and complex trauma. It sounds like you're talking more about complex trauma. I don't know. I can't even really say it's run-of-the-mill trauma or the trauma we're currently experiencing collectively living in this world.
Oh, yeah, right. There's that kind of like communal trauma that's systemic trauma, which is certainly a thing. I mean, you have intergenerational trauma. You have there's all these different ways, but complex trauma often stems from childhood, but it can also extend from any prolonged period of time where you felt very unsafe. Yeah. So that also can be experienced for somebody who was in an abusive relationship for a long time or, something like that. Whereas PTSD is something that happened in a short period of time, usually. So a car accident, or you were in a war, or you were assaulted, or something like that. And PTSD and complex trauma or complex PTSD, they are very similar in the ways that they can present, but complex trauma can often be more challenging to live with and more challenging to recover from.
Now, you've spoken about trauma or trauma healing as, let's go back to the onion, to the layers. You're peeling back the layers. Do you think that working through healing your own trauma actually helped you come to the realization that you're trans, you're a man?
Oh, 100% it did.
Oh, how so?
It was, because all of the walls I put up around myself to protect myself were from childhood. And there are things like just stay invisible, fly under the radar, fit in, conform. Conformity for me was never because I feel particularly conservative. Conformity for me is because not standing out in any way made me unsafe. That is what the world taught me very, very young. And so of course, I couldn't come out as trans. I mean, even when my family members came out as trans, I couldn't come out as trans because that was really dangerous. So my body just kept pushing it down. It was just like it just kept it down for a long time. What ended up happening was I moved cities. And when I moved cities, and my mom and I have talked about this since, when I moved cities, the identity that I had created in the city of Ottawa, because that was where I was born and raised, in sort of the Ottawa-Gatineau area. That identity was very strong. I mean, my old name is on the walls of City Hall 3 times, right? Like, I mean, I knew everybody. I felt like I knew everybody, and I felt like everybody knew me. So I was very tied to that identity. I couldn't go to the grocery store without somebody stopping me and saying hi, right? So it was that kind of situation. Yeah. When I moved here to Toronto, it's, yes, people do still stop me and say hi, but fewer people, right? And so it gave me this space to recreate myself. And as I settled into my new life, I realized that who I was as a person didn't fundamentally suit me. I'd already realized I wasn't cis by the time I left Ottawa. And so I was identifying as non-binary. And that is in the book where I realized I'm non-binary. And non-binary identities are very valid. And a lot of people realize that they're non-binary or, gender nonconforming in some way, and that is where they land, and that is where they stay. My child is non-binary, and their partner is non-binary. Great. I thought that might be where I fit, but it still didn't feel right. And then once I got here, I realized I am in fact a stinky boy.
A silver fox. Let's correct that.
Well, thank you.
You're like the silver fox icon. Okay. And you can take that with you.
I'm blushing right
I can
now.
see that.
Like I'm red, not because it's hot in my office, but because I'm actually blushing.
So I actually was following you during, the great pile on of, 2018 or 2019, I can't remember. And then I saw, and watching your journey has been incredible, kind of, me on the sidelines being quiet and just watching this person sort of evolve was phenomenal. It was kind of healing for me as well, seeing what they can come back from, because, I live with trauma. Shocking. I know. I'm a writer.
It's true. It's almost like a qualifier for being a writer. I swear.
It's true. It's true. Oh my God. That's another podcast, and I will have you back on. Writing trauma as a writer, being a trauma writer. And then I saw you come out, and I think it was either Sam Haywood, your agent, or it was Transatlantic. It was Welcome to Rowan Jetté Knox. And there was something tingly about that for me. I thought, oh my God, I've watched him go through this entire journey. And even though I didn't know you, and a lot of people do feel like, you know, with people who are more famous like you, that they know you, but really, do they know you? I felt this sense of pride and like, oh my God, you know, yes. What was that like coming out so publicly and professionally as well?
It was terrifying. Okay. The backstory to that is I had figured out after all the books were printed and sitting in a warehouse ready to go, that I was not that person. Yeah. And my initial idea was I'm just going to tour the book as this person, and then I'll come out after. That didn't feel great, but I figured I was obligated to do that. And then it was Samantha Haywood, who is absolutely one of the most incredible people I know, who said, but Rowan, how hard will that be for you? Because I'm really worried that that's going to be too difficult for you. And I said, you know, I think you're right. I do think that you're right, but I don't know what to do. I feel really trapped in this. I mean, who has ever had this experience before where the books are printed, you're ready to go, and you're like, whoops, wrong name, wrong gender.
I think everybody's going with the sticky notes now.
Everybody puts the sticker on. I know, it's great. And she was the one who advocated for me to make this part of the journey, because she said, Rowan, everything about you is about authenticity. Yeah. You've always been very open about who you are. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't feel right that you feel like you have to hide this now. Yeah. Because that's not you. Yeah. And God, I love that she did that. She just really went to bat for me. And because of that, I was able to, and it's not, I mean, my publisher was great. They were wonderful. So no notes there. Yeah. But if it wasn't for her, it wouldn't have happened that way. So we actually timed it. So I came out August 1st as Rowan, and the book came out a few weeks after that. So they actually pushed the book back by 3 weeks, so that I had about 6 weeks between coming out and being able to start touring the book. And honestly, everybody was great. Everybody was great. It went really well. And I'm glad I did it that way.
I feel like you have another memoir.
Why would you think that? Yes, I know. No, I mean, is there something in the works? Yes. Have I pitched it to anybody yet? No. Okay. I want to write. And the story keeps evolving. Things keep evolving, right? So I want to give it a little bit of space. I want to open my coffee shop. I want to find my quiet moments. That means that, hire a couple people so that maybe in the afternoons I can go sit quietly in my own coffee shop or somewhere else, and someone else's coffee shop, and write this story out, because I think the first book was very much about me putting other people before myself. And it's not, I have no regrets. I'm so glad that I poured my heart and soul into supporting my family members. I think that was the right thing to do, and it is what they needed. The second book was what happens when you do that your whole life, because I did do that my whole life, not just for that, and you don't take care of yourself. And that's what happened there. And this one is ending up as who I am, finding myself, prioritizing myself, and going into the evening of my life, if you will, because I am turning 49 this year, so I'm not getting any younger. Going into the evening of my life as the sun is still up there, but getting a little lower. And how do I enjoy my evening? How do I put a cap on the end of my day or my life? And so I really want this to be, I want it to show people that even if you don't get it right away, even if you make mistakes, even if it takes you a long time to find yourself, you can still have this wonderful time. I'm so grateful for everything that has happened. every single thing, the good things, the bad things, everything, because it all led me to here. And my goodness, I have goosebumps talking about
I'm
it because I
feeling a
am
little
so,
weepy. Stop.
but I am so grateful because the person I have become is somebody I'm really happy with.
Oh, what a beautiful trilogy, sort of like this rounded story. Thank you. And thank you for putting yourself out there all the time for us, folks, cis, non-binary, trans, people struggling with mental health, trauma. You have been this lighthouse for a lot of people. I hope you take that to heart.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a wonderful discussion, and to finally get to chat with you in the actual face was really nice.
Yeah. Soon to be in the flesh, because I am going to come stalk your, and not in a weird way, your coffee shop.
Yeah, you are.
I have to be careful with that when I say that.
Amazing. Amazing.
Thank you for listening to The Book Hook. This episode was hosted by me, KJ Aiello, with production by Jesse DiMartino and social media production and marketing by Jackie Johnstone. Come back for more episodes like this one.